The city night was silent, as if it were holding a secret no one dared to speak. Inside a small room, Hilary sat by the window, watching the rain trace glimmering paths across the glass. Each droplet seemed like an old memory, falling, dissolving, and then returning in a different form. She once believed that some wounds could never heal, that once a heart was broken, it could never love again. Yet deep within her tired eyes, a faint light still lingered, the light of someone who had fallen, but never completely surrendered. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Human beings do not awaken by dreaming of the light, but by daring to face the darkness within themselves. Hilary is not merely a story about a woman searching for her lost faith. It is the journey of every soul that has ever been wounded, the path we must walk when confronting our inner shadow, facing the parts of ourselves we try to forget, only to realize that light does not come from the outside, but from the very pain we once feared the most. And sometimes, in the moment that feels darkest of all, the seed of rebirth quietly begins to grow. 1. The broken dawn. Hilary's first dawn did not arrive with the soft pink of morning light, nor with the cheerful song of birds calling a new day. It began with the sound of shattering glass, her father's drunken shouting filling the house, steeped in the stench of alcohol. A little girl sat huddled in a corner, small hands pressed over her ears, as if by not hearing, the fear itself might vanish. But fear does not disappear. It seeps into the heart, drop by drop, like black dew falling upon the fragile soil of childhood. Day after day, Hilary grew up amidst anger and silence. Her mother, once as gentle as the spring breeze, had become nothing more than a quiet shadow hiding tears each night. Hilary understood early on that some houses exist only to shelter from rain and sun, no longer a place to return to. In that world, love was a luxury. She learned not to expect, not to hope, not to believe that anyone could ever truly care for her. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And for Hilary, that terror began very young. She feared herself, the blood that carried her father's shadow, the possibility that within her also lay the seeds of violence and cruelty. She feared that one day she might become the one who hurts others, just as her father once did. Hilary's world held no youthful dreams. While other girls dreamt of roses and weddings, she only wished for a night's sleep undisturbed by breaking sounds. When people spoke of love, all she saw in it was betrayal, pain, and weakness. So she built a wall inside her heart, cold, hard, and silent. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." From that moment, Hilary's fate seemed carved deep by memories she could never erase. Each time she tried to forget, they returned in dreams, dark figures whispering, "We are still here." Hilary carried within her a fragment of shadow, what Jung called the shadow, the collection of all that she dared not see, dared not admit: anger, hurt, the longing to be loved, yet the terror of being abandoned. And like in every human being, that shadow lived and grew with her, waiting silently for the day it would be seen. But Hilary did not know this. She only knew how to run. From the house, from the memories, from herself. She thought that by leaving, the past would stay behind. But no, the past never stays still. It followed her like a shadow, silently imprinting itself upon her choices, her glances, her gestures. Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Hilary lived within that pain, unaware that it might one day lead her toward the light. Her youth was colorless, not green with vitality, but gray with ash. She became quiet, cautious, always feeling misplaced among others. She smiled at the world, but inside she was hollow. She did not believe in happiness, for she had never truly known what it was. Yet paradoxically, those wounds gave her depth, a quiet clarity. In her gaze was something others dared not touch, Not because it was cold, but because it was too real. By her 20s, Hilary understood that love could destroy a person, and yet she could not stop longing for it. There were nights when Hilary sat by the window, staring into the black sky. The city roared below, but she felt as if she were drifting through an endless void. Inside her, a faint voice whispered, "If there were a place where love is not born of fear, could I ever find it?" Jung once wrote in Psychological Reflections, "There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection." Perhaps Hilary's dawn had to break, so she could learn that true light does not come from the outside, but from within the very pain she carried. The broken dawn, that shattered sunrise, was not merely the beginning of Hilary's story, but the beginning of a journey inward. A journey each of us, sooner or later, must take, where we learn to face the darkness within, not to destroy it, but to listen to it. And then, as the first faint light flickered through the night, Hilary understood. No one can truly awaken without first passing through ruin. For as Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." In that moment, as the breath of night began to fade, Hilary rose and stepped outside. The sun had not yet risen, but she knew dawn was coming. Not the dawn of yesterday, but her own. A dawn once broken, yet still radiant in its silent rebirth. 2. The fall. No one knew exactly what happened that night. Only that when dawn came, Hilary was no longer the girl she had been. Yesterday, the fall came quietly, yet it swept everything away. Her youth, her honor, her faith, and the last flicker of light in her eyes. The city awoke as if nothing had happened. Only Hilary sat curled in the corner of an empty room, trembling hands trying to wipe away tears she could not tell were of pain or humiliation. Outside, the sounds of cars and laughter rose indifferently, as though the world did not care that someone had just been cast beyond the border of those worthy of love. From that moment, Hilary was no longer the same. She became the other, a person society refused to see, refused to remember. No one cared what had broken her. It was enough to place a label on her and lock every door. Whispers, scornful eyes, cold shoulders, all became invisible bars of a prison that held her captive each day. Carl Jung once wrote in the Red Book, "The way is not light, but dark. The path toward the self is not one of light, but of darkness." And Hilary, unknowingly, had stepped onto that path through her own fall. In the days that followed, she did everything she could to survive. When there is nothing left to lose, a person becomes bare. Hilary entered the hidden corners of the city, places untouched by light, where people smiled through sorrow and lived through wounds they could not name. She worked in small shops, sometimes serving, sometimes cleaning, sometimes lowering her head beneath cruel words just to earn enough for a meal. It was the world of the forgotten, where people learned to live without hope. And there, Hilary began to see life's true face. Not the polished mask of daylight, but its raw truth in the dark. Jung once wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." And somehow, Hilary's roots were now sinking deep into her own hell. She thought she had lost everything, but amid the smoke and the smell of alcohol, among shattered souls, she realized she still had one thing left, her breath. Each breath was a declaration. She still existed, if only to endure. And within that endurance, a fragile seed began to sprout. The seed of consciousness. As a child, Hilary had been taught to live rightly, to be good, to avoid mistakes. But now, among the outcasts, she saw the bare truth. Everyone carries a portion of guilt within. Jung once wrote in answer to Job, "The spirit of evil is as necessary as the spirit of good." Hilary understood then. Darkness is not something to be destroyed, but something to be seen. Each night, lying in her small room, she listened to the rain on the tin roof and thought of her life. She no longer felt hatred, only a quiet sadness, the sadness of one who has suffered enough to no longer fear. In that stillness, she heard a soft voice within. If there is nothing left to lose, can I begin again? From the very place where I fell. Jung called this the descent into the unconscious, the journey down into the abyss of the psyche, where the soul must face the darkness it has always feared. For Hilary, the fall was no longer punishment, but an invitation to walk into the uncharted land and reclaim the forgotten fragments of her soul. She began to observe the people around her, those once branded as corrupt, sinful. In their eyes, she saw a familiar pain. Some had been betrayed, some had lost children, some were simply poor. And Hilary realized they were not monsters. They were wounded souls trying to survive in a merciless world. Jung once wrote, in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality." Hilary no longer feared her shadow. She began to listen to it. Each anger, each stain, each weakness, all were reminders that she was still alive, still feeling, still capable of loving and being loved. As time passed, Hilary stopped running from what had happened. She accepted the fall as part of her, like a scar on the skin, like a crack in a mirror. Because, as Jung said, in all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. One morning, as the pale sunlight spilled through the window, Hilary rose and looked into the mirror. The reflection staring back was no longer that innocent girl. Her eyes were deeper, sadder, yet within them glimmered a strange light, the light of someone who had fallen and learned to rise. She understood then. The fall had not destroyed her. It had shattered the fragile shell she once called life, giving her the chance to see herself, bare, fragile, but real. Hilary smiled faintly, the smile of one who knew she had lost much, yet had found the most precious thing, the meaning of her pain. For as Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And in the stillness of that morning, Hilary chose to rise, not to fight the world, but to walk forward with a heart once broken, now knowing that from within the ruin, light can grow. Her fall was not the end, but the first chapter of a soul learning to return home to itself. 3. The City of Masks. Night fell upon the city like a velvet curtain laced with gold. Lights shimmered on the glass towers, reflecting countless glittering faces moving through the crowded streets. Here, everyone was in a hurry, rushing to work, to smile, to love, and to forget. Hilary blended into that current of people, walking with her small crossbody bag and a face calm to the point of indifference. No one knew who she was, and no one cared. In this city, people only looked at the mask you wore. Hilary worked in a small massage parlor tucked between flickering neon signs. Each night, she put on a gentle smile, a voice as soft as velvet, and eyes that knew how to listen. People came and went, leaving behind their sad stories mixed with the scent of cheap perfume and cigarettes. Hilary listened, comforted, and sometimes pretended to care, not because she wanted to, but because that was the only way to survive. Carl Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "Persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." The persona, the mask we wear to exist, is not who we truly are, but the image both we and others believe to be real. And Hilary, like everyone in this city, lived behind a mask. She was no longer the Hilary she once knew, but the pleasant girl, the woman who knows how to make others feel better. By day, Hilary walked through bright streets, men adjusting their ties and mirrors, women smiling perfectly through layers of makeup, lovers holding hands in polished cafes. They all seemed radiant, successful, happy. But Hilary knew, behind those faces lay fractured souls. The city was a grand stage, and everyone had been acting for so long they had forgotten who they were. Jung once said, "We don't really discover something new. We merely rediscover what has been forgotten." Human beings do not truly discover, they remember. Hilary understood that. She knew she too was lost among forgotten things. She no longer remembered the last time she had laughed sincerely, nor the feeling of being held by someone who cared. Every night, as she removed her makeup and heels, she faced a stranger in the mirror, a woman even she could not recognize. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But in this city, Hilary knew, no one was allowed to live truthfully. Everyone had learned to hide, masking fear with success, loneliness with fleeting affairs, emptiness with artificial smiles. And Hilary was no different. One night, a drunken customer sat crying in the room. He said he only wanted someone to be honest with him. Hilary stood silently. In that moment, she realized he was no different from her, another soul who had forgotten how to be real. Both wore masks. He used money to buy affection. She used pretense to survive. Jung warned in 2 essays on analytical psychology, the danger is that they become identical with their personas, the professor with his textbook, the tenor with his voice. The greatest danger is when one becomes identical with their mask, the professor with his lecture, the singer with his voice. Hilary knew she was slowly becoming her own mask. The dazzling city had not only stolen her youth, but was also draining her soul, piece by piece. Yet, amid all the falsehood, something inside her began to stir, a faint awareness, like light slipping through a narrow crack. She began to see that those seemingly perfect people carried wounds just like hers. They were afraid to be seen, afraid to be judged, afraid to be left behind. Late one night, after work, Hilary stepped outside. A light drizzle fell on the street, scattering the city's lights into soft, blurred reflections. She stopped. On a small bridge over a dark river, the water flowed quietly, mirroring hundreds of faces glowing from the city lights, half real, half illusion. Looking into the stream, she whispered, "Among all these faces, which one is mine?" Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. One does not awaken by dreaming of light, but by bringing darkness into awareness." And perhaps, in gazing into that dark river, Hilary began to see her own shadow, not to fear it, but to understand it. The city of masks continued to spin, its people still smiling, loving, betraying, and pretending to be happy. But Hilary, amid the sea of faces, began to breathe, a real breath, unforced. Beneath her cold exterior, she felt her heartbeat, fragile, yet alive. Jung once wrote, "The mask of the unconscious is not negative. It protects the individual from being swallowed by the collective. The mask of the unconscious is not evil. It protects us from being devoured by the crowd." Hilary understood then. The mask was not only a prison, but also a shield that had kept her alive. Yet now she knew that someday, when she was strong enough, she would remove it, not to escape the world, but to return to herself. And when morning came, amid the rush of people, Hilary walked on. Still the same girl, still the same calm face, but with something new in her eyes, a quiet, steady flame waiting to be kindled. The city may wear 1,000 masks, but sometimes a single heart that dares to be real is enough for the light to find its way. 4. The Bet. That night, the bar was drowned in the pulse of jazz and amber light. Laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses, the haze of smoke, and the scent of whiskey. Michael Jordan sat at the counter, turning a glass of bourbon in his hand, his tired eyes drifting over the glittering faces around him. He had everything: money, fame, bright stages. But in the middle of the crowd, he felt strangely lost. Everything around him was just empty repetition. False smiles, fleeting pleasures, compliments he no longer heard. A friend patted him on the shoulder, voice slurred with drink. "Think you're as charming as they say? Go win her over. The one sitting there. She's different." Michael turned. In the corner sat a woman beneath the soft gold of a lamp. Her hair was slightly tousled. She neither smiled nor spoke, nor sought anyone's attention. Amid the noise, she seemed like a pause in the chaos, a silent note in a restless song. Michael smirked. "All right, a bet." And with that single sentence, fate began to move. Hilary didn't know she had just become the target of a cruel game. To her, men had long ceased to be something worth believing in. They came with sweet words and left with cold silence. She was too tired to care who looked at her or why. She only wanted to live, to let the days pass quietly, like rain sliding over the tin roof. Yet something in Michael's gaze unsettled her, not the hunger she often saw in others, but a depth, a curiosity, and a loneliness that mirrored her own. Michael approached her with the confidence of someone used to admiration. He told stories, made jokes, tried to charm. Hilary smiled faintly. She neither rejected nor encouraged him. Between them stretched a fragile distance, close enough to hear each other's breath, yet too far to touch. Carl Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." And indeed, between Hilary and Michael, an invisible reaction had begun. He returned to the bar the next evening, then the next. He told his friends it was only to finish the bet. But deep down, he knew something else was drawing him, something he could not yet name. He began listening to Hilary speak, though she said little. She told him about the city, about nights of rain and the haunting silence of her small apartment. No complaints, no tears, only the calm of someone who had walked through hell and had nothing left to lose. The more he knew her, the more Michael sensed something he had never found in any other woman, a quiet strength behind her weariness, a beauty that did not need to prove itself. Behind those calm eyes lay an entire ocean. Hilary, though distant, could feel the shift in him. His voice lost its arrogance, his gaze softened, but she refused to believe. In her world, trust was a luxury long shattered. She kept her distance, like a stray cat that only comes close once it knows it won't be harmed. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And so did Michael. He had used music, parties, and women to drown out the emptiness inside. But Hilary became the mirror that forced him to see his own loneliness. In that reflection, he found a part of his soul he had long abandoned. But fate, as always, was not kind. Just when Hilary's guard began to lower, when her eyes softened, when a faint, genuine smile appeared, the truth surfaced. One of Michael's friends let it slip. "He only went after you because of a bet." Those words cut through everything she had dared to believe. Hilary fell silent. She did not cry or rage. She simply stood up and walked away, as if awakening from a beautiful dream she knew she could never return to. Michael chased after her, begging, trying to explain. He said it was foolishness, that everything had changed, that his feelings were real. But Hilary only looked at him, her voice soft and tired. "To you, it was a mistake. To me, it's proof that love was never meant for me." She left him standing in the rain-soaked street. Michael stood there for a long time, watching the raindrops fall onto his hands, cold and sharp. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to lose. Not just someone, but the truest part of himself. Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. There is no awakening without suffering." And Michael awakened. He realized that the bet he thought was a game had become his first lesson in love. A lesson he had never known, never respected. Hilary, though wounded, carried something small within her. Because even if that love began in deceit, it reminded her that she could still feel, still tremble, still love. In a world of masks, that was already a miracle. The city remained bright and loud as if nothing had happened. But somewhere within it, two souls, one who once played with emotions and one who once feared love, had fallen into the game of fate. And that game, cruel as it was, opened a path for both, the path through pain back toward the soul. Carl Jung once said in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Michael had to lose Hilary to learn how to accept himself, and Hilary, through that pain, understood that destiny does not always come to make us happy, but to make us awake. That bet, on the surface, was a game between two people, but on a deeper spiritual level, it was a wager of the soul, where love, though born of deceit, became the door that led them both to truth. And in that truth, they discovered, only when the heart falls to its lowest depths can it truly learn how to love. 5. The resistance. When the heart refuses. After everything, Hilary no longer believed in love. She no longer wanted to love, to be loved, or to believe that anyone could be genuine with her. To her, love was like a flame, once warm and bright, but one that had already burned everything to ashes. Now she only wanted to survive, quietly, peacefully, without attachment, without expectation, and without ever being hurt again. Her days passed in dull repetition. She woke early, went to work, and returned to her small room when the city had fallen asleep. The yellow light cast faint shadows across the wall, the chair, the notebook, and her silhouette stretched silently on the cold floor. No music, no flowers, no late-night laughter. She lived by habit, as though even her breathing had to be controlled, so it wouldn't stir an old memory. She still saw Michael a few times, by chance, or perhaps because he wanted to. He didn't say much anymore. He simply stood at a distance, watching her with the quiet eyes of a man who had broken something precious that he could never fix. Hilary remained calm, cold, as if the past had never happened. But only she knew. Each time their eyes met, her heart trembled, just a little. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. There is no awakening without pain." Hilary understood that, but she was too tired to awaken again, so she chose resistance. Her heart was now like an old, locked door. Behind it lay a room full of ashes, fragments of memories, unfinished words, and dreams left undone. She knew that if she opened it, everything would come rushing back and drown her once more. So Hilary taught herself how to live without feeling. But the human heart never truly listens. No matter how many times it is silenced, it still glows faintly, like an ember that refuses to die. One afternoon, while cleaning her room, Hilary found an envelope. No sender's name, only a neatly folded sheet of paper. Inside was an unfinished composition, the notes messy, hurried but raw. At the bottom, a single line read, "For the one who made me understand what's real." She didn't need a signature to know who it was from. That night, Hilary didn't open her door. She sat in the dark, staring at the sheet of music as if it were a wound that hadn't healed. Part of her wanted to tear it apart. Another part wanted to listen. But she did neither. She simply sat still and let the paper rest on the table, like an uninvited friend who had come to visit. Carl Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "What you resist persists." The more you resist something, the more it clings to you. The more Hilary tried to escape her emotions, the more they clung to her, like breath itself. That night, she dreamed she was walking down a fog-covered road. At the end of it, a figure was playing the piano. The melody was strange, sad yet warm, calling and farewell at once. She couldn't see his face, but something in that music made her want to cry. When she awoke, she realized her eyes were wet. The next morning, on her way to work, Hilary passed through a small square. There, in the golden light, someone was playing the piano. She stopped. The melody, it was the same as the one in the envelope. Michael sat there, quiet and still, his fingers moving slowly across the keys. In the noise of the city, there was only him. And the music. Hilary stood still. For a moment, time stopped. She looked at him, not as the man who had hurt her, but as a human being healing himself through remorse. When the music ended, the crowd applauded. Michael lifted his head. Their eyes met. No words, only silence. But in that silence, something gentle passed between them, like a cool breeze after a long, scorching day. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The most frightening thing is to accept oneself." Hilary understood that forgiving Michael mattered less than forgiving herself, the part of her that had been too afraid to live honestly. That night she went home, opened the sheet music, and began to write. Not for Michael, for herself. She wrote with tears and with a small spark of faith, awakening after a long sleep. On the last line she wrote, "I'm not broken. I'm still here." Days passed. Hilary's life returned to its quiet rhythm. Yet something had changed. She no longer avoided music, no longer flinched at the sight of happy couples, no longer shut herself off from the world. Her heart was still scarred, but it was beating again, truly beating, because it had found its rhythm once more. Carl Jung once said, in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Hilary chose to let go of resistance, not to love someone else, but to love herself again. The woman who had endured, who had erred, who had suffered, yet still had the courage to keep walking. One weekend afternoon, she passed through the same square. The piano was still there, but this time a young boy was playing. The tune light, innocent, full of life. Hilary stopped, smiled, and let the warm sunlight fall across her shoulders. She knew she would love again, but not because she needed to be loved in return. She would love because her heart no longer feared. For when the heart ceases to resist, the soul finally finds its way home. Sitter, the awakening. Michael's awakening night descended upon the city. Neon lights glimmered through fogged glass, weaving across the wet streets like threads of gold. Michael sat alone at the piano in his vast apartment, his fingers grazing the worn keys. The notes that came out were fragile, fragmented, as if even sound itself had grown weary. He had once moved thousands of hearts with only a few chords, but tonight, even the music born from his own hands could no longer reach his soul. The room was silent, save for the ticking clock, the heartbeat of a lost man. Michael looked up at the sky beyond the window, the sky of someone accustomed to light, yet who had never truly seen the stars. In the reflection of the glass, he saw a stranger staring back at him. Tired eyes, a hollow smile, and an empty soul. He had once believed that money, fame, and admiration were enough, but now he knew none of it could fill the aching void within. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And Michael was living proof of that. He had spent his whole life running, into music, into pleasure, into the arms of countless women he never truly loved. But everything began to change the day he met Hilary. She entered his life like a shadow, quiet, distant, unafraid. At first, he approached her because of a foolish bet, a challenge to his pride as a man. Yet the closer he came, the less he understood her. She didn't react, didn't soften, didn't tremble at his charm. She looked at him with a calm so pure it made him feel exposed. Michael had met many people, but never someone who made him feel seen like that. Hilary's silence was like a mirror, reflecting all that he had tried to hide. Beneath the surface of a successful artist, he saw a lost child, desperate for affection beneath the glow of the stage. Carl Jung once wrote in Psychological Reflections, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And for the first time in his life, Michael began to look within. He remembered his past. A distant father, a mother who demanded perfection, a childhood shaped by pressure, not love. He realized that his charm, his arrogance, his fame were all masks concealing one simple fear, the fear of being abandoned. And it was Hilary, the woman he once treated as a game, who forced him to confront it. She needed nothing from him, no compliments, no spotlight. She stood firmly in her own darkness, proud, solitary, real. And for the first time, Michael longed to live that way. Without noticing, he began to change. He stopped chasing fleeting joys in noisy rooms, stopped seeking comfort in a meaningless laughter. He spent more time at the piano, not composing for applause, but listening to himself. In each note, he began to hear something genuine: sorrow, remorse, and an unspoken longing for love. One evening, Michael went to find Hilary. He brought no flowers, no song, no charm. He simply stood before her and said softly, "I used to think I wanted to conquer the world, but what I truly needed was someone who could see me, really see me." Hilary said nothing. Her eyes softened, but she didn't reply. She only shook her head slightly, as if afraid that words might shatter everything. Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Michael understood then. What he had called fate was nothing more than blindness. He could not blame Hilary for not believing him, because he himself had never believed in his own truth. From a game of desire, his journey became one of redemption. He no longer wanted to win her. He only wanted to be worthy of her gaze. He began writing new music, imperfect, unpolished, but real. In every melody, he poured what he had never dared to say: fear, loneliness, and the yearning for forgiveness. One rainy night, sitting at his piano, he wrote a piece called The Awakening. The melody was gentle, a confession in sound. He didn't know if Hilary would ever hear it, but that no longer mattered. For the first time, the song was not for her. It was for himself, the man who had lived like a sleepwalker and was finally opening his eyes. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And Michael realized that this was what he had been searching for. Not another person's love, but reconciliation with his own soul. He didn't know if things with Hilary could ever be repaired. But for the first time, he was not afraid. He had stopped running. In the quiet of the night, he closed his eyes and listened to the rain falling on the glass roof, its rhythm merging with his heartbeat, soft as the breath of real life. Michael smiled. In the darkness, he knew he had awakened, not in the bright light of the stage, but in the soft glow of a small inner flame. A flame lit by the very woman who had once broken him, but also taught him how to love, how to be honest, and how to be human. For as Jung once wrote in answer to Job, "Only the wounded physician heals. Only one who has been wounded can truly heal." Michael had once been the one who caused pain, but now he was learning to heal, beginning with himself. And in that moment, beneath the long night sky, the artist finally began to live. 7. The Mirror of Pain. The city still shone as always, towers blazing with light, streets rushing with people, the sounds of laughter, engines, and endless noise blending into a chaotic symphony that neither Michael nor Hilary seemed to hear anymore. They sat across from each other in a small cafe by the street, where the light was dim and the scent of coffee mingled with the faint fragrance of rain drifting through the window. Between them lay silence, not the hollow silence of strangers, but the silence of two souls too weary to lie to each other any longer. Hilary looked out the window, her hands clasped together on the table. A few loose strands of hair framed her face. Her eyes seemed distant, following something that no longer belonged to the present. Michael remained quiet. He had once spoken endlessly, persuading, explaining, trying to reach her world, but now he only watched. Because in this moment, he finally understood something he never had before. Not every pain needs to be explained, and not every wound can be healed with words. Carl Jung once wrote in Ion, "The meeting with oneself is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow." And fate, silent yet merciless, had made Hilary and Michael mirrors of each other. Michael had always seen himself as strong, a man in control of his emotions. But in Hilary's calm gaze, he saw his own fears, the fear of being hurt, judged, forgotten. And Hilary, who had built walls of ice around her heart, saw in Michael the image of her past, a lost soul yearning for love. yet once causing pain because he did not know how to love rightly. Between them, there were no games, no promises, only two bare souls staring into one another. And in that gaze, they both realized something. They were far more alike than they were different. Michael spoke softly. "You still don't believe in love, do you?" Hilary smiled faintly. "Love left me long ago." He wanted to protest, to say no, that love was still here, in her eyes, in every restrained breath she took. But he stopped, because he knew she didn't need comfort. She only needed to be seen. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Michael no longer resented Hilary's coldness, for he realized she was merely doing what he himself had done all his life, hiding pain behind composure. After that day, they began to meet more, often, not as lovers, not as friends, simply as two exhausted souls seeking silence. They sat together on park benches, sometimes for hours without a word, listening to the rustle of leaves or the wind threading through the branches. Hilary spoke of her sleepless nights, of how the sound of rain frightened her because it carried echoes of her past. Michael spoke of his stifled childhood, of a father who burdened him with expectations too heavy for a child to bear. They laughed, not with joy, but with truth, because in sharing they were not seeking sympathy, but reflection. Carl Jung once wrote in the Red Book, "The soul becomes what it beholds." And when Hilary saw Michael's pain, she began to recognize her own, the pain she had denied for years. One evening, they walked by the river. The city lights shimmered in the distance, reflecting in the water like trembling ribbons of gold. Hilary stood by the railing, her hand gripping it gently. "Do you ever get tired of pretending to be strong?" she asked. Michael paused, then nodded quietly. "Every day." Hilary turned to him. For the first time, she no longer saw the man who had once hurt her, but someone learning to forgive himself. Jung once said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." And both Hilary and Michael had touched their own hells. They were not there to save each other, but to recognize that darkness too has value, for it is from darkness that light begins to grow. One day, Hilary visited Michael while he was at the piano. She sat silently, listening as he played a strange melody. No climax, no defined rhythm, only simple broken notes that somehow felt true. When the music ended, she asked, "What's it called?" Michael looked at her and smiled. "The Mirror." Hilary nodded. She understood. It was a song about them. Two souls who saw each other, not to fall in love, but to awaken. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man, in Search of a Soul, "Only the wounded physician heals. Only one who carries wounds can truly heal." And Hilary understood. Michael was not there to heal her, nor was she there to save him. But by seeing each other clearly, they had each begun the slow work of healing themselves. That night, as she left his apartment, Hilary paused by a large mirror in the hallway. In it, she saw herself. No longer the cold, hardened woman she once was, but someone truer, softer, and more luminous. She smiled faintly and whispered, "I see now." Outside, rain began to fall. The droplets gathered on the glass, reflecting the dim light of the street lamps, like the tears of the sky gazing at its own reflection. Somewhere across the city, Michael also stood before a mirror, his eyes calm. As if, for the first time in years, he could look at himself without contempt. They didn't need to say goodbye. They both knew. Once you have seen the truest part of another soul, you remain in each other forever, like two mirrors facing one another, reflecting into infinity. For in the end, the mirror of pain is not the story of two lovers, but of two souls who found themselves in the suffering of another. And in that mirror of pain, they finally saw the light. 8. The fragile love. The city drifted into the soft gray tones of afternoon. The rain wasn't heavy, but it lingered. Hilary stepped out of the shop, her old coat soaked at the shoulders. Down the long street, she saw Michael waiting on the other side, holding a black umbrella. He didn't call out. He just smiled. And in that brief moment, amid the rush of strangers, Hilary felt something unfamiliar. Warm, yet fragile, as if one strong gust of wind could scatter it all away. Their love came after too much pain and began in silence, like two weary souls who had found each other among the ashes of their pasts. Hilary, who no longer believed in men, and Michael, who had once lost himself in a life of glitter and noise, now sat together in a small cafe on the corner, listening to the rain. They never spoke of the future. They simply looked at each other, as though words might break the delicate peace between them. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Perhaps the second most terrifying thing is to let someone else truly see you." But Hilary and Michael chose to do just that. They stopped hiding their scars. Hilary told him about her rejected youth. Michael told her about the loneliness behind the stage lights. They didn't pity one another. They only recognized in each other the same broken pieces of themselves. Their love unfolded quietly. A hand held while crossing the street. A shy smile when sunlight slipped through the window. A morning when Michael placed a cup of coffee in front of her and whispered, "I didn't know what love was until you walked in." Hilary smiled but didn't answer. She was afraid to believe, afraid to hope, because the world outside had never been kind to people like her. Rumors began to spread. People whispered, mocked, stared. Every time Hilary entered a room, she could feel the eyes on her. "Who does she think she is to believe she's worthy of him?" someone muttered. She didn't respond, only lowered her gaze, hands trembling beneath the table. And every time Michael heard such words, he grew quieter. He had once promised to protect her, but he was beginning to realize love could not be a shield against the world. One night, Hilary asked, "If one day you had to choose between me and everything you have, what would you choose?" Michael was silent for a long time. Then he said softly, "I only know that without you, everything I have means nothing." Hilary smiled sadly. "You may think so now, but one day, when the wind changes, you'll see. There are things love alone can't hold." Carl Jung once wrote in Aeon, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." And their love was the same. It could not exist without walking through the hell of fear, judgment, and prejudice. One evening, Michael brought Hilary to a luxurious restaurant where his friends were gathered. All eyes turned toward them. Someone smirked, raising a glass of wine. "Ah, so this is the girl you mentioned? She's interesting." The air froze for a moment. Then another laugh broke through, colder than the wind outside. Hilary sat still, her hands trembling under the table. Michael rose to his feet, his voice low and steady. "I don't need you to find her interesting. I just need her to be real." But after that night, Hilary knew they would never leave him in peace. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." The more she tried to hold on, the more fragile their love became, like a candle flickering in the wind, trembling with every breath of doubt and fear. Then one day, Michael was called home. His father, a wealthy and severe man, sat behind his desk, voice cold. "Would you really throw away your reputation for her?" Michael looked him straight in the eyes. "I just don't want to lose myself." The old man was silent for a long time, then sighed. "Young love is always beautiful, but you'll learn. Some stains never wash away." Those words struck Hilary like a blade, cutting through the fragile faith she had tried to protect. She didn't want Michael to choose. She was too familiar with being the one left behind. And this time, she didn't want anyone else to suffer because of her. The next morning, Hilary was gone. She left no goodbye, only a small note. "Don't look for me. If love is real, it will find you again." Michael searched everywhere, but it was in vain. Her room was empty. Only a scarf remained, faintly scented with her perfume. He sat down by the piano, his hands trembling as they touched the keys. The unfinished song he had written for her still lay there. He closed his eyes and let the music flow. Each note, a memory, an apology, an ache without a name. Carl Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." And indeed, both had been transformed. Hilary had learned to believe again. Michael had learned to love without possession. Their fragile love, though it could not weather every storm, left behind something more enduring than permanence, awakening. They understood that love is not an escape from loneliness, but a way of touching it, and realizing that even in pain, there can be meaning. That night, Michael sat alone by the window, watching the streetlights flicker in the rain. A faint smile crossed his lips, because at last he knew, love doesn't have to be strong to be real. It only has to be true. And sometimes the most fragile loves are the ones that make us the most human. 9. The shadows return. Night fell over the city like a thick curtain of black velvet. Hilary sat by the window, watching raindrops crisscross through the streetlights, quiet threads of memory, as if trying to stitch back together the torn fabric of her past. The room was silent, save for the ticking clock, the heartbeat of time itself. Everything seemed peaceful. Yet deep within her, a storm was quietly rising. These past days, Michael still came, still bringing that gentle smile, still playing the new pieces he had written for her. But every time he spoke of the future, Hilary grew silent. It felt as though happiness was approaching. And that precisely was what frightened her. She feared it might disappear. She feared she might not deserve it. Carl Jung once said in Psychology and Religion, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. There is no awakening without pain." And Hilary was awakening. But instead of light, what came to her was the darkness she had spent years trying to forget. One afternoon, a phone call from the hospital struck like the cold knock of fate. "Your father, he's in critical condition," said the nurse on the other end. Hilary froze. For a moment, the world stopped moving. She didn't know whether to go or to hang up. That man, the one who had thrown his family into ruin through gambling, who had filled her childhood with tears, was now dying and asking to see her one last time. She went to the hospital that night. The room was lit with a pale, sterile glow. On the bed lay a shadow of the man he once was. Thin, frail, eyes clouded over. When he saw her, his lips trembled. He could only whisper, "I'm sorry." Hilary stood still. She had imagined this moment 100 times, that she would rage, scream, walk away. But now she felt only emptiness. No tears, no anger, only a strange, quiet sorrow, as if something inside her had shattered, yet made no sound. Carl Jung once wrote in Ion, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Hilary realized she had been living her entire life guided by these buried memories. She feared love because she had seen her mother betrayed. She feared happiness because she had watched it collapse overnight. And even though she had left that house long ago, the shadow of her past still followed her, pulsing quietly beneath every heartbeat. In the days that followed, she became withdrawn. Michael noticed. He tried to visit, but she always found an excuse. One evening, unable to bear it any longer, he came to her door. Hilary opened it, her eyes swollen from tears. In her hand was an old photograph, a smiling little girl standing in a sunlit garden beside her late mother. "Are you okay?" Michael asked softly. Hilary placed the photo on the table, her voice trembling. "No one ever really escapes their past, Michael. I thought I'd gone far enough, but it still finds me. It's like the darkness waits for me to turn away, and then it follows." Michael stepped forward, taking her hand. "You don't have to run anymore. I'm here." She gave a sad smile. "You don't understand. My darkness isn't like yours. It's not just memories. It's what makes me afraid of happiness itself. Every time I start to love, I remember everything I've lost." Carl Jung once wrote in The Red Book, "To confront a person with his shadow is to show him his own light." But Hilary wasn't ready to face that light. She feared that when it came, everything she was clinging to would disappear like smoke. Michael looked at her for a long time. "I'm not here to save you, Hilary. I just want to walk with you through the dark." Hilary shook her head. "You can't. You don't know what it's like to live with shame, to walk through a crowd and feel the whole world staring at your scars." She stood up and turned away. The dim light fell across her back, revealing the quiet loneliness in her silhouette. Michael wanted to reach for her, but he knew no one could pull another from the dark until they were ready to walk out themselves. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." Michael understood that. He simply whispered, "I'll wait until you can see yourself." A week later, Hilary was gone. The room was empty, except for a scarf draped over a chair and a small note. "Don't look for me. The darkness is the only place I understand." Michael read it, but didn't cry. He sat down at the piano, his hands gently pressing the keys. The melody that emerged was slow, heavy, like the sigh of a soul. He knew that Hilary had to walk her own path, had to face her darkness alone. Carl Jung once said, in answer to Job, "Only the wounded physician heals," and Hilary, the one with the deepest wounds, was the only one who could truly heal herself. Outside, the rain kept falling. Each drop reflected the dim glow of the streetlights, glimmering like faded memories. Michael looked up through the window. The sky was still heavy with clouds, yet somewhere, far beyond, a faint light shimmered. "You can go as far as you need to, Hilary," he whispered, "but your darkness can't swallow the light, because that light, it lives within you." Carl Jung once wrote in Ion, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And Hilary, in the long night of her soul, was learning to see that light. No one knew when she would return, but Michael believed that when the darkness no longer frightened her, she would come back, not as someone who had fled, but as a soul who had found herself in the night. Because sometimes, only by walking through the darkness, do we finally understand the meaning of light. 10. The redemption, the heart's atonement. A winter morning descended upon the city in a thin, cold light. Michael sat alone in his small apartment, where the walls still seemed to echo with the sound of his old piano. Since the day Hilary left, every sound inside him had become hollow. He still performed, still smiled before audiences, but after every concert, he returned to silence, a silence that no one could touch. On the table lay Hilary's letter. The short line, "Don't look for me," was carved into his mind like words etched in stone. He had read it hundreds of times, not to understand it, but to feel her presence, the woman who had made him see himself for the first time. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And Michael finally understood. This was something he had never been able to do. His entire life had been a series of performances, the perfect son, the talented artist, the charming man who knew how to captivate others. But beneath it all, he realized he had no idea who he truly was. Hilary, with her quiet voice and honest eyes, had seen through every mask he wore. And when she left, Michael realized that what he had lost was not merely a woman, but his only chance to live authentically. He began to withdraw from everything that had once defined him. No more lights, no more media, no more parties filled with hollow laughter. He left his luxurious apartment in the city center and moved into a small room on the outskirts, a place so silent he could hear the rhythm of his own heartbeat. People said he had fallen. Newspapers printed headlines like, "A musical genius loses his edge," or "Michael Jordan collapses after love." He didn't argue, because to him it wasn't a collapse, it was a return. Carl Jung once wrote in Ion, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And so, Michael began to face his own darkness, without fear, without denial. He saw clearly the pride, the selfishness, the emptiness that had carried him through all those glittering years. He returned to his piano, not to perform, but to speak. The first melodies he played were raw and slow, like whispered confessions. He rewrote the piece Hilary once heard unfinished, but this time it wasn't for her. It was for the part of his soul still waiting for redemption. He named it The Redemption. One night, he brought that piece to a small bar. No grand stage, no adoring crowd, just a few strangers sipping their drinks. As the notes began to flow, the world around him disappeared. His music no longer sought to impress or astonish. It was honest, fragile, deeply human. When the final chord faded, someone asked, "Who did you write that for?" Michael smiled. "For someone I hurt, and for the part of me she helped awaken." Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Michael knew then, Hilary wasn't merely someone he loved. She was the mirror that made him see who he was. Time passed. Winter slowly melted away. One morning, as he opened his mailbox, Michael found a postcard. No sender's name, just a single handwritten line. "I heard your music. Thank you for still believing in something beautiful." He didn't need a signature. He knew it was from Hilary. Michael sat in silence for a long while. He didn't cry. He simply smiled. Outside the window, the snow was melting, revealing branches ready to bloom again. He realized that some people come into your life to love you, and others come to help you find yourself. Hilary had done both. Carl Jung once said, in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And Michael, at last, had done just that. He returned to the stage, not to reclaim fame, but to share truth. No grand symphonies, no dazzling flourishes. He played The Redemption. The hall fell silent. When the final note dissolved into the air, he spoke softly. "I once thought love was the light that saves us, but now I understand. Love doesn't save us. It simply gives us the courage to save ourselves." The audience didn't applaud at first. They sat still, absorbing the quiet. Then slowly the applause began, gentle, sincere. And in that moment, Michael knew he had been forgiven. Not by Hilary, but by his own heart. Carl Jung once wrote in answer to Job, "Only the wounded physician heals." And Michael, who had walked through arrogance, loss, and love, had finally become a healer. Through music, through compassion, through honesty with himself. Night descended again. He stepped outside the theater, drawing in a long breath. The city was still alive with noise, but inside him was perfect stillness. Somewhere, far away, Hilary might be hearing that song, and he didn't need to know more, because he finally understood. True love is not about holding on. It's about becoming whole, and the redemption, the heart's atonement, was no longer just their story, but the journey of a soul that found light after walking through its deepest darkness. 11. The light within. The small seaside town always carried a sense of fragile peace, as if every lost soul could come here to hide. Hilary lived in a small wooden house overlooking the shore. Every morning, she brewed a cup of hot tea and opened the window to let the sea breeze in, carrying the scent of salt and the dampness of dawn. Her life drifted quietly, like the waves beyond the cliffs, rising and falling, steady, but never still. It had been more than a year since she left the city. No one here knew who she was, and no one spoke of her past. In this place, Hilary was simply the woman in the White House on the hill. She worked at a second-hand bookshop near the harbor, where the scent of yellowed paper mingled with the soft chime of wind bells outside the porch. By day, she arranged books, dusted shelves, and spoke kindly to the few who wandered in. By night, she wrote in a small notebook, journal entries meant for no one, quiet conversations with her own soul. But sometimes, even within that calm, the darkness returned. It no longer came like a storm, only as a thin veil of smoke drifting through her thoughts when she sat alone. There were nights when she dreamed of her father lying in a hospital bed, his cloudy eyes pleading, his raspy voice whispering, "I'm sorry." She would wake, her clothes damp with sweat. But instead of fear, she only sat still, watching the moonlight spill across the ceiling, and whispered softly, "I forgive you." Carl Jung once said in Psychological Reflections, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And Hilary understood that to truly live, she could no longer run. She had to look directly at the darkness within, the part of herself she had denied for so long. Day by day, Hilary learned to live more slowly. She tended to the wildflowers that grew in her garden, each white daisy a tiny fragment of peace. She taught the town's children how to play piano on an old instrument she had bought secondhand. Sometimes, when she saw their small hands tremble over the keys, she smiled gently. "Don't be afraid," she would say. "Every wrong note brings you closer to the true sound." One afternoon, her student Annie looked up and asked, "Miss Hilary, why do you teach me to play if you once said you were afraid of music?" Hilary paused, then replied softly, "Because sometimes the things we fear most are the very things that can heal us." Annie smiled, and Hilary felt her throat tighten, eyes glistening with quiet warmth. That night, when the moon rose high, Hilary lit a single candle in the middle of her room. The soft flame flickered against the wall, casting her shadow, half light, half darkness. She sat down, opened her notebook, and wrote a single line. "I forgive myself." There were no tears, only a deep breath, as if something inside her had finally been set free. Carl Jung once wrote in Ion, "There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. There is no light without shadow, and no wholeness without imperfection." Hilary smiled faintly as she recalled that line. For years, she had tried to be right, to erase her past, to hide her scars. But now she understood. We are not made to be perfect. We are made to be whole. And that wholeness comes only when we dare to face our wounds, when we have the courage to touch what hurts most. Sometimes, when she had free moments, Hilary would play The Redemption, the piece Michael once sent her. The piano notes floated softly through her little home, as gentle as the sea breeze. And for the first time, she no longer felt pain when she heard it. That music, once a farewell, had become a tender memory. She understood now that their love was never meant to be kept. It was meant to set them both free. One morning, Hilary walked along the shore. The wind was light, the sky pale blue, and the seagulls traced wide arcs above her. She stopped, closed her eyes, and listened to the rhythm of the waves rolling in. In that deep breath, she felt something she had never known before, peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had stopped fighting herself. Carl Jung once wrote in The Red Book, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life." Hilary understood at last. She no longer needed to prove she was worthy of love or forgiveness. She only needed to believe that, even after all her wandering, she was still worthy of her own light. That afternoon, she returned home, brewed a cup of chamomile tea, and opened the window wide to let the sea air in. She wrote in her journal, "Light does not come from the outside. It has never left us. It only waits for us to be brave enough to turn back and see that we have been shining all along, even in the dark." Carl Jung once said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "As far as we can discern, The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Hilary set down her pen. The evening sun spilled across the window, painting the sea in gold. She stood, opened the door wide, and let the sunlight flood in. The light touched her face, and on it was a smile, true and unguarded, returning after many long years. No more resentment, no more fear. Only a woman, once lost, once broken, who had finally found her way home to herself. And in that moment, Hilary knew she no longer needed anyone else's light, because the light she had been searching for had always been within her heart. 12. The unfinished song. The final winter afternoon descended upon the city with a faint, pale light, the fading breath of the sun. In a quiet little room, Michael sat beside his old piano. On the music stand lay an unfinished sheet, a few erased bars, a few hesitant notes, as if the composer had been caught between the past and the present. His fingers brushed the keys gently. The sound rippled softly like raindrops falling into a still lake. It was the piece he had never completed, the unfinished song. Once, he had written it for Hilary, but now it no longer belonged to one woman. It was for two souls who had once wandered into each other, touched, and then drifted apart, carrying with them love, pain, and awakening. The melody lingered in the room. Outside, the wind moved through the window frame, brushing against the white curtain. A faint scent from the past slipped in. Chamomile tea, sea breeze, and the trace of Hilary's hair on that misty morning long ago. Carl Jung once wrote in The Red Book, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." Michael lifted his head, gazing out the window. He understood now. The love between him and Hilary, though broken, still carried a kind of secret order, one that only those who have known the deepest loss could ever recognize. He no longer searched for her. No more wandering through familiar streets. No more waiting outside the cafe where they once sat. But some nights when he played, he could feel her presence, as if a soul lingered close by, not to hold on but to accompany. Elsewhere, hundreds of miles away, Hilary lived in a small wooden house by the sea. She still taught piano to the village children, still brewed tea in the mornings, and wrote in her journal at night. On her desk, too, there lay an unfinished sheet of music, also titled The Unfinished Song. No one knew that she had once heard the piece on the radio, her eyes wet, but her lips quietly smiling. One night, as the sea wind howled, Hilary wrote in her journal, "Perhaps love is not meant to be kept. It comes only to teach us how to see ourselves." Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Hilary closed her notebook and smiled softly. Yes, they had both been transformed. Michael was no longer the proud musician he once was, and she was no longer the woman ruled by fear. They had passed through each other's lives, yet had not truly lost one another. The next day, Hilary sat beside a little girl learning to play. When the clumsy notes echoed through the room, Hilary gently placed a hand on the child's shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid of wrong notes. They make the music more real." Then she fell silent, realizing she had just spoken to herself. Meanwhile, in the city, Michael performed at a small concert. He did not announce the name of the piece. When the first notes rose, the room fell completely still. The melody was tender and sorrowful, the sigh of someone who had learned that every separation carries its own meaning. He played to the final bars, and then stopped. A long silence filled the hall. He didn't finish the piece. The audience waited, but Michael only smiled and said quietly, "Some songs are not meant to end, because it's only when they pause that their true echo begins." Carl Jung once wrote in Ion, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Michael understood. The love between him and Hilary had not failed. It had only fulfilled itself in the language of the soul. They were no longer together, Yet both had awakened. Both had found their truest selves. That same night, Hilary sat by her little piano at home. She didn't know that somewhere Michael was playing the same melody. Two songs rose in two distant worlds, merging somewhere unseen, like two rivers meeting beyond the edge of sight. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being." And they, Hilary and Michael, had done exactly that. Hilary no longer played to forget, but to remember. Michael no longer composed for someone else, but for the part of his soul that love had awakened. One spring morning, Hilary walked along the beach. The sky was clear, the waves gentle, the sunlight brilliant. She closed her eyes and breathed in the salt air. Somewhere, she thought she heard the faint sound of a piano, or perhaps it was only the ocean. But she believed that wherever he was, Michael was still alive, still playing, and that the song had never stopped. She smiled, whispering softly into the wind, "Thank you for teaching me how to love and how to forgive." The wind rose, carrying with it a whisper, as if answering her. No one could see, but in that moment, it was as though two souls had touched, not with hands, but with the quiet light of understanding. The story ends not with closure, but with an image. Hilary walking along the shore, sunlight breaking into 1,000 glimmers across the water. The faint sound of Michael's piano echoes from afar, from nowhere and everywhere, still playing, gentle and eternal. For some love songs never truly end. They become invisible melodies, weaving themselves into the listener's heart, to stay there forever, like love itself, like life itself, an unfinished song that never needed to end. Because sometimes the most beautiful thing in this world is the echo that lingers after the music has stopped.